being a good note taker requires that we know a little bit about note taking and some pitfalls to it. Some people just jot down their notes and they don't have maybe a system. It's good to have a system if you can. I mean, not everyone's doing pen and paper. A lot of us are doing notes digitally, and you might be using, I don't know, there's of course Google Docs, there's just our computer, you just use Microsoft Word, or if you're on a Mac, the Pages program, or you might be using the notebook app on your iPhone or some other Android related note taking. There's a bunch of Microsoft. OneNote comes to mind. I do want you to be aware of something called mind mapping. Mind mapping is a great way to visually organize your information. There's a reason why they call this a mind map. It reflects the way your mind works a little better than linear notes. Linear notes are just, you got a sheet of paper, it's got lines on it, and you just take notes in a linear fashion. Well, your brain doesn't work in a linear fashion. Our brain is a lot more non-linear. We're a lot more visual. And even though these are just, colorful bubbles with text in them, I mean, we could add visuals to this if we wanted to. Sometimes they call that sketch notes. But the idea is that you have maybe, this is a mind map on how to create a mind map, but you might have chapter 5, the title of chapter 5 here. Maybe this is section 1, 3 most important things about section 1. Maybe this is section 2 and some details related to section 2. Maybe this is section 3 and so on. If you're looking for order, you can just go in a clockwise manner. We're trying to go in order. But mind maps are a great way to, again, visually organize information. Now, there are all sorts of mind mapping programs out there. If you could just Google, free mind mapping programs, or I mean, there's paid ones too. Obviously, some have like a hybrid model where it's like free version, premium version. I do want to highlight one that I enjoy using personally, and it's called XMind. XMind, if you go to xmind.net, that's where you can find it. And like a lot of these programs, there's a free version and a paid version. I think for most students, the free version has a ton of features. I've been using the free version for years. Actually, let me just show you real quick what it looks like. And here you have your title in the middle, and that might be, maybe you click here, and maybe we're taking notes on chapter 5. And we want to add a topic. We could click up here, or you could also use your keyboard to just hit the Enter or Tab key to add details. Sometimes our details have details. Sometimes our details of details have details. Anyway, when we get to section 2, we add section 2, and then we add our details associated with that. When we get to section 3, we do that, and so on. You see how it starts adding things nicely here? And you could start, I mean, you might have a very complex mind map, and for that, you might need to zoom out to see the whole thing, or you might zoom in. I like to use mind maps for organizing information. So sometimes we've got to write a paper or prepare a presentation. So you put your topic in the middle, and I'm sure this has happened to you where you kind of know what you want to cover, but you're not sure the order. That happens to me all the time. I do a lot of public speaking, and when I'm talking, sometimes I know ahead of time, okay, I got this presentation tomorrow, I know what I want to talk about, but I don't know the order yet. So I do a little brainstorm. And the same thing would happen if I'm doing any kind of writing. And the way I do a brainstorm with a mind map is I just double click and I add one of the things I want to cover. When? I don't know, but I also want to cover this. When? I'm not sure. I want to cover this. Oh, there's this tiny little detail I got to cover as well. I got to cover this. I got to cover that. I got to cover that. So we have all these things floating around originally. And then once we have enough things floating around, then we could kind of get an idea of, okay, you know what? This right here goes first. This is going to go next. Wait a minute. This right here, that's related to this right here. And this is related to that, and I also got to cover this, and I want to cover that. And we can start with something that looks very, very unorganized and end up with something that's a little more organized. So this is how we can use mind maps to kind of visually organize our information. And the cool thing about this XMind program, again, if you go to xmind.net, that's where you could find it. You could, there's all sorts of templates. So you see all these templates, different formats that you can choose from, different styles. I mean, maybe you want a style that looks like this. Maybe you want like a hierarchy type style, or maybe you want this, there's a fishbone, they call this like a fishbone style, or like a timeline style. And of course, the nice thing about this program, you could also export this ultimately into a PowerPoint file, a JPEG, a PDF, however you want to do it. And it's just a nice way to organize information.